Welcome back to 3 Up, 3 Downs division breakdowns. We're in the National League. We're in the East Division. We finished up with the Mets. We finished up with the Braves. We're moving on to the World Series runner-ups, the Philadelphia Phillies. Let's take a look at the lineup. It has to be noted, after a stellar playoffs, after almost putting the city of Philadelphia on his back, Bryce Harper did have Tommy John surgery following the playoffs. His return, a bit questionable, a bit up in the air, but he's hoping for a ballpark of around the All-Star game. He is expected just basically to be the DH role when that happens. Don't know what the throwing capabilities will be after getting Tommy John, especially with that short of a time frame. I would expect him to be in that DH role, but we will see. We will break it down. Let's take a look at this roster. They added Trae Turner from the Dodgers, their new shortstop, filling in the role of Gene Segura. It's now Trae Turner's. Followed by Kyle Schwarber, the big power, 46 bombs last year, another 6 or 8 in the playoffs, 52 on the season. Impressive stuff from the American. Followed by first baseman Rhys Hoskins. Behind the plate, the always reliable JTREALMUTO. Followed by, and something depressing, and way back on the track, Nick Castellanos hits one long in right field. Nick Castellanos, followed by, correct us if we're wrong, Phillies fans, but we believe Derek Hall at the DH role until Harper is back, followed by Alec Baum at third base, Bryson Stott at second, and Brandon Marsh in center. The bench is followed by Garrett Stubbs, Josh Harrison, former White Sox, the infield utility specialist for this team is what I'm looking at, Amundo Sosa, and Jake Cave. Alex, what do you got on this roster?
Yeah, so obviously Bryce Harper is about as big of a loss as you can get to your lineup. I mean, superstar player, big lefty bat, but they go ahead and add Trae Turner. Mm-hmm. So you kind of offset that a little bit. I do think Bryce Harper's a little bit better, but we're talking about $300 million players here. So It's nice to have either one of them in the lineup, and it will be a nice little boost at the All-Star break when they get Harper back. Schwarber doing the thing as he always does. Seemingly, it's kind of odd that he hasn't gotten a mega contract yet in my mind, and I think part of that is because he doesn't really play outfield well. But I mean, you can't deny the 40 homers he's likely to give you. You know,
it's one of those high risk, low reward, or high risk, high reward in the sense of you're maybe sacrificing some defensive play, but you're getting 46 plus home runs.
Yeah, and I don't care if I'm sacrificing defense. I mean, you got to be horrible.
In that situation,
You take your homers. You take the bombs. He's clearly valuable, and he's clutch. You know, we've seen it time and time again. Hoskins, Realmuto, and Castellanos are going to be key for this team. All really good hitters. I think they're all going to be asked to carry a little bit more of the load with Harper out. So they're going to all have to have big seasons. Castellanos is a guy who I actually expect a lot from this year. He had a disappointing year last year, but I think he's just a proven really good hitter in this league.
Terrible outfielder. Just knowing that you got a guy at Schwarber in left and Castellanos in right, it's a little scary, but continue.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's not an outfield defense team. Brandon Marsh makes up for a little bit of that in center, but not great. Alec Bohm, another top pick who has been disappointing. I think he won Philly fans over after he was getting booed, and he essentially was like, yeah, I deserved it. Like, I expect that from the fans, and I don't hate it. And I think the clip was him saying, like, I fucking hate this place.
Yeah, he was ready. He had some questionable comments, but he responded.
I mean, he didn't make the comment. It was just caught on camera of him clearly saying that. But I'd be interested to see some progression there. Bryson Stott, another young player who I think they're hoping to take another step. We haven't seen it yet, so we'll see. Brandon Marsh, a guy who they got from Mickey Moniak, who was the former first overall pick and a proven bad baseball player at the professional level. So I think that was a great move. He just wasn't good. I don't know what the Angels were doing there. But this lineup's really good. It's really good. You still have questions because without Bryce Harper, it's very different. But you add in Trae Turner, who's going to be fantastic. And the team has good vibes. I think always coming off of a postseason run, you establish yourself as just you establish yourself as a different type of team going into the next year.
I agree.
You know, it really does a lot for how you start the year and the expectations. And I think oftentimes we think of expectations as a bad thing, but I think they can also be a good thing. When you're expected to play well, I think oftentimes you get respect and you have pitchers afraid of you. And, like, there's just a lot of good stuff that comes with it, too. I think this team is viewing themselves as a contender. I think their run last year probably motivated a little bit of them signing Trey Turner. It's a really good lineup.
No, I completely agree. It's kind of how do you directly compare this to the Mets? How do you directly compare this to the Braves? I think there's a little bit more reliability, a little bit more comfort within those two other lineups compared to this, where you've got a little bit of some youngins trying to fill some big roles. But once you get back a Bryce Harper, I do see that being a huge help for this team. Let's take a look at the rotation and the bullpen, leading off by Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, Tajon Walker, Ranger Suarez, and Bailey Falter. A pretty decent rotation, definitely at the 1, 2, 3 with Walker, Nola, and Wheeler. You saw some impressive stuff from Ranger Suarez in pitching and relief and starting role spots for this team in the playoffs. I think it's a pretty good rotation. Alex, what do you got?
Yeah, so the 1-2 punch is elite. I think Nola is one of the more underrated pitchers in baseball. I'm very interested to see what he's going to get paid this offseason. I think he's going to be a free agent, and I think he has started earning through the playoffs and just general performance like big-time money, maybe $200+ million. I don't know if we'll get that, but that's what I think he's worth.
Yeah.
Great player. Zach Wheeler has been a great signing for this team. I mean, he's just done everything they could have hoped for. Those two are just a great 1-2 punch. Taijuan Walker, good pitcher, hasn't developed and probably won't develop into that top-end starter that people thought he was going to be, but he's a serviceable 3 or 4. You don't feel too comfortable about him in a playoff series, but you don't hate it either. Ranger Suarez, good pitcher. Don't know much about Bailey Falter. They project him for a 4.25 ERA. He pitched last year, but I'm not too familiar at this point. But it's a good rotation. Again, another team when you're at this level, you look to add to make it a great rotation. I don't think it stacks up with either the Braves or the Mets quite yet, but when you have that 1-2 punch, you got to be happy about your chances in both those games. And then Taijuan Walker and Ranger Suarez are guys who will give you a chance to win every game they pitch.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Guys that will eat up innings for this Phillies team. Let's take a look at the bullpen, leading with the closer, Sir Anthony, great name, Dominguez at the closer role, followed by Jose Alvarado, Craig Kimbrell, Gregory Soto, Angelo Bellatti, Matt Strahm, Connor Brogdon, and Nick Nelson. An interesting bullpen. I think a 1-2 punch that is excellent. I love Gregory Soto. Craig Kimbrell, a little question mark for what he can bring to you at this point after kind of finding it in Chicago on the north side, losing it on the south side, and not really finding it in L.A. Craig Kimbrell back with the Phillies. I think he's been a Philly before.
Nope.
No, he hasn't been a Philly. Sorry, correction. But what can you expect out of this bullpen?
I don't know. It's a question. I think Craig Kimbrell's a massive question mark. And then you got guys like Jose Alvarado and Gregory Soto who are very similar pitchers in that they have overwhelming stuff, but can't find the strike zone sometimes. And because of that, we'll throw meatballs to like kind of overcompensate.
Yeah.
Sir Anthony Dominguez is great. He's going to be really good for them again this year, and I expect him to be the closer. I don't know if they want to give it to Kimbrell to try to like make him comfortable and hopefully get the upside out of there.
If
but
you
I think
get an elite closing Kimbrell, it's a huge signing. It's a huge win. And it makes this bullpen look a hell of a lot better.
And he's one of those guys who, because he's been a closer his whole career, and we saw this with the White Sox, he may not be suited for a non-closer role.
That is
so
true.
You may say he may not be our best pitcher, but he's at his best when he's in the closer role, and our other guys can kind of move around. So I think this has potential to be a really good bullpen. I love the Gregory Soto signing. He's just a guy who, like, when he's on his stuff, you hate playing him.
Yep.
And when he's off his stuff, he's going to blow the game.
Yep.
Which is, it doesn't make you a great reliever, but it can make you a really good reliever, especially if they can get him to click. And if he's clicking, I think they're going to be very happy, and the rest of the NL East is not going to be happy when they have to play him a lot. So I think there's 4 high upside guys there, which is really good to have. What they get out of them is the real question here. But I think in terms of Phillies bullpens, this looks like one of the better ones they've had in recent years.
Yeah, no, I get it. I see it, and I agree with you. We'll see what happens with the pitching arms of this Philadelphia Phillies team. Let's take a look at our X factors for this roster. I'll lead us off. It's not going to be Trey Turner from me. It's going to be Rhys Hoskins. I love what the progression has been from the first baseman. I want to keep seeing it. I want to keep seeing the power numbers go up, and I want to see him be a true leader again for this Philadelphia roster.
I love the pick. I had 2 in mind. You took one of them, so I'm glad. And my guy's kind of the same narrative there. Nick Castellanos. I'm looking for him to step up too. We talked about this when we went over the lineup, but Bryce Harper's a big shoe. There's a big shoes to fill. Obviously, It's Bryce Harper, and Trey Turner brings a lot, but he doesn't bring the power, the same power at least. So I think if Castellanos and Hoskins can both have good years, they're going to be fine without Harper, and they're just going to be even better when he gets back. So.
And I think if we look at the projections and the predictions, I think this is what maybe has you beating out a team we've covered already. But the fact is, I think this is a huge loss. I think can they weather the storm? Obviously, the talent is there, but I don't know if it's better than the Mets, better than the Braves. So for that being said, I've got them finishing in a wild card spot, third in the division.
Yep, totally reasonable. I got them finishing second. I think they're going to beat out the Mets. I just don't think the vibes are high with the Mets right now, and I think that Edwin Diaz puts a damper there. I think the Phillies have a chance to get out to a hot start, and this lineup is as good as anyone's if it's clicking, and I think it will be clicking. I'm expecting a lot from Castellanos this year, to be honest. When I make this pick, I expect him to have a good year, and I expect some of these relievers to fall the right way on their spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, when you have two teams in the division that won 100-plus games last year, and then you go and win 87 out of 70 or out of 162, and then inch your way to the World Series, you kind of like what you got going. So we'll see what happens out of the Philadelphia Phillies. Phillies fans, if we missed anything, if you feel like you've got another X factor that we didn't list, feel free to comment in the comment section below. Otherwise, go give us a like, a subscribe, and check out all the Star 6 Media content. We have wrapped up with the Phillies. We're moving on to the Miami Marlins next.